Right when it seemed like the internet was moving on from this case, David got arrested. Now, the authorities have stepped up and filed some of the most severe charges possible. The police are confident they have the physical and digital trail to build their case. If you have been watching this channel, you already know the wildest part of this whole situation has always been the haunting imagery coming from his music. Looking at the song lyrics, the music videos, and those crazy promo stunts leading up to his arrest, a lot of people felt like the writing was on the wall. If you were paying attention to the aesthetic, the visual parallels to what investigators are now looking into are undeniable. So the real question right now is, will the prosecution actually use his music videos and lyrics as evidence in front of a jury? We have already seen the prosecution attempting to use creative expression against artists like Lil Durk. When you look at David's digital footprint, the overlap with the official police timeline is intense. Today, we are going through the music video, the lyrics, and the promotional stunts to see exactly how the legal system might use his own art against them in court. By the end of this breakdown, you will see exactly why this specific imagery might become the prosecution's strongest weapon. When you analyze David's artistic imagery and overall marketing during the last few years, one thing becomes quite clear. There is a lot of imagery that is now highly questionable considering the current news. You really can't help but wonder if any of this will be used against him in the court to paint his involvement. When you listen to some of the biggest tracks, like Romantic Homicide, what was labeled artistic expression is now being looked as the potential evidence in a major criminal investigation. When the initial news surfaced about the investigation, this specific song went viral again, and many were already side-eyeing the lyrics. But now with the authorities making these capital charges official, you can't help but to think this all could have been overlapping in ways many people didn't realize. In this song, David literally sings about deleting someone in the back of his mind. In the actual track, he sings, "In the back of my mind, I killed you, and I didn't even regret it. I can't believe I said it, but it's true. I hate you." From my research into this timeline, Romantic Homicide came out years before what happened to Celeste. But prosecutors often look back at an artist's entire catalog to establish a pattern of behavior or a specific state of mind. Considering that the authorities now allege he may in fact have committed such a crime, I'm extremely curious to see if these exact lyrics will be used in a court of law to show premeditation. The prosecution could argue that he in a way romanticized the idea of doing the crime long before the tragic events actually took place. I'm also interested in seeing if the prosecution can pinpoint exactly when they met to determine if this song could have actually been about this situation. It's really not hard to believe when you take a look at the music video for the song. The music video makes all of this even more questionable. In the visual, David is seen trailing a woman who was wearing a white dress. What is quite interesting about the actress they used for the music video is that many pointed out she seems to resemble Celeste in some ways, especially after what happens in the final scene of the video. By the end, we find David covered in red paint, standing over a bed where the actress is lying motionless. They then show a close-up of luggage opening up with knives falling out of it. The imagery is quite haunting. While when the video came out it was viewed as just an edgy visual, today it could easily be a key piece of evidence for the prosecution. The state could argue that the casting of a woman who appears to resemble Celeste was a highly deliberate choice meant to dramatize exactly what he was contemplating doing. They can literally point to this very scene as visual proof that this is a concept he romanticized for years. But the timeline of his public releases gets even deeper. The official music video for One More Dance, which was released just 2 months before the news about Celeste broke, features similar questionable imagery that is impossible to ignore. The visual features a very specific scene depicting a person being placed in the trunk of a vehicle by David. When you take that visual and place it right next to the official court documents detailing the tragic discovery involving his abandoned Tesla, the connection becomes absolutely unavoidable. The prosecution could easily attempt to use this as a direct thematic link to the case, reinforcing the theory that there was an extensive premeditation taking place behind the scenes. Think about how strong this evidence can be in front of a jury. This music video was officially released to the public in February, and the authorities believe David committed the crime in April. This means just 2 months prior, David literally filmed and released a visual that directly dramatized him putting someone in a trunk. Fast forward a few months later, and that exact scenario played out in reality. Now, I'm planning on following up this video with a Patreon exclusive upload where I focus solely on the music video imagery. That is where I can dive deeper into the intense visual themes and do an unfiltered breakdown with all limitations. If you want to catch that video, make sure to join me on Patreon. I also just released another brand new video over there that you won't want to miss, so it's the perfect time to join. If you want to become a member, you can find the link in the description. While this specific music video came out before the authorities say he committed the crime, what he did immediately after he allegedly committed the act is quite literally worse. Like I already established, the authorities believe David committed the crime on or around April 23, 2025. On April 27, 2025, the Withered World Tour officially kicks off with a massive special show in Houston. It was the entire production design behind this specific show that raises the most serious questions. Those who attended the concert were welcomed with a full funeral service style theme. Guests who walked in were instructed to sign an actual guest book, and a casket was literally on display so people could give their condolences. The video footage circulating right now of David's team carrying the casket into the venue is quite telling. This has to be the most damning piece of evidence the state has right now. Just a few days after the authorities believe David committed the crime, he hosted a major performance where this was the exact imagery presented to his fans. The prosecution could easily say he was hiding his crimes within his art, in a way, telling on himself without actually telling on himself. Then we have to talk about the merchandise he released just 1 month after the authorities believe he committed the crime. In May 2025, David released a new t-shirt design for his upcoming tour merchandise line. You typically expect standard tour dates or album covers as the primary graphic for these drops, but David chose a highly concerning aesthetic. He designed a graphic, red handprint t-shirt design for his fans to wear.
To make my bloody shirt the uniform for a tour. Go ahead and take your hand, put some blood on that hand, take that hand, and put it on that shirt. And I'm gonna do this 25 more times and I'll come back to you when it's finished. Here's the bloody shirt. As you see, my hands are completely decimated, but we came out with a good uniform. I'm about to go on stage.
Think about that timeline. Just a month after it's being alleged he committed this severe crime, he produced and sold a t-shirt that seems to directly romanticize the act. This could be a massive piece of evidence for the prosecution. They can absolutely argue that releasing a shirt covered in red handprints just weeks after allegedly committing this crime is a direct reflection of his mental state. They could easily say he was putting his actions right out in the open, turning a dark reality into a literal fashion statement for his fans to purchase. What makes this specific piece of merchandise even more questionable is what happened a few months later. Fast forward to September 2025. This was the exact time law enforcement made the tragic discovery involving his abandoned vehicle. Right as the investigation started making massive headlines, David and his team quietly pulled the handprint shirt from his website entirely. They completely scrubbed it from the store without a word. The state could absolutely point to that sudden removal as a massive sign of guilt. The prosecution could argue this was a desperate attempt to hide the thematic connection once he realized the authorities were closing in. We also have to look at the actual interviews he was doing during this exact same window. There were 2 interviews that stuck out to me the most. First is the Genius interview, where David breaks down the lyrics for his massive hit Romantic Homicide. Then there is the sit down with another platform where he explains the concept behind his alter ego, Atami. The timing of these interviews could easily be a major focal point for the prosecution because, once again, they were published right after the authorities believed the crime took place. In his Genius interview, David could be seen acting quite nervous when talking about the hook of the song, specifically the part where he discusses the act he committed in the back of his mind.
Of it convey, which was in the back of my mind, but then you think that I'm going to say you died, but I say I killed you. So it's not like the thought of her is gone by itself was something that she did, it was something that I decided to do. And I killed her in the back of my mind. It was really figurative, I killed you, especially in the back of my mind. I try to stress that in the back of my mind. That's why I say it so loud. In the back of my mind, you died. In the back of my mind, I killed you. So it's all in the mind because that's the most secure place you can be is in your mind.
Davis seemed to be very cautious with his wording, emphasizing heavily that he only did it in the back of his mind and never actually carried it out in reality. But the authorities now allege he did in fact carry out that exact scenario. David also appeared on the Tape Notes podcast where he openly broke down the entire lore of Atami. In that specific interview, he literally described the alter ego as the evil version of himself. He went into deep detail about the dark concepts surrounding this character.
And I have this alter ego called Itami, which means pain in Japanese, where everybody's connected from this invisible life force that connects you to either your soulmate or friends you meet or people you encounter in your life. And I flipped that for this story, as in everybody is connected to Itami, my alter ego, who is like the agent of chaos in my entire aesthetic. You see him in various music videos, he'll pop up, and he's basically like the evil version of me, and he's kind of garnered this cult that followed after him. And in the One More Dance music video, you follow a relationship of two of the cult members, and they're going around with me in the trunk to bury me after I died. And they're just like wreaking havoc on the city. And that was a kind of cool like piece to show just like the layers that I have to this lore and this world building that I'm doing leading up to this album. So
Think about how the state could present that timeline to a jury. The prosecution could easily argue that sitting down for an interview just weeks after allegedly committing a capital crime to discuss an evil alter ego is a massive indicator of his mental state at that time. They could easily say he was using the Itami character as a psychological shield to talk about his real-world actions without confessing directly. They could argue he was putting the exact psychology of his alleged crimes right into the public record for his fans to consume. When you look at the animated visuals of Itami in his music video doing severe harm to characters, and you pair that with a public interview explaining this dark side, the legal implications are massive. The state could point to this podcast as him essentially putting his truth in plain sight, using the guise of creative storytelling to document his actions. This gives the district attorney a direct audio clip to play in the courtroom to establish his state of mind during the critical May 2025 window. We also have to take a step back and look at the actual music he dropped during this exact same time. This is where the timeline gets even more unbelievable. Like I mentioned before, the authorities are officially claiming the crime happened on or around April 23, 2025. Well, exactly 2 days later, on April 25th, his debut full-length album Withered officially dropped to the public. Think about the reality of that timing for a second. The prosecution is absolutely going to look at the thematic elements of this entire project as they build their case. They could easily argue that this album directly reflects his exact state of mind during that highly scrutinized 48-hour window. The title of the album alone, Withered, is already raising a massive amount of questions online. People all over the internet are breaking down the lyrics track by track, looking for any hidden admission or signs of premeditation. There is one song in particular that the internet is heavily focused on, and that is the track titled Afterlife. When you read these lyrics under the context of the current police timeline, the wording is extremely concerning. In the first verse of Afterlife, David sings about a very specific girl and a dark dynamic between them. He literally sings, "The devil told me you were good for me. My mother told me he would lie." The authorities can absolutely use this specific track when presenting the evidence to the jury. The prosecution could easily argue that these lyrics establish a documented motive and a highly toxic state of mind during that exact 48-hour window. They can present this to a jury and say he was publicly broadcasting his internal justification for what he allegedly did. He is talking about the devil convincing him of something regarding this girl and realizing it was all a lie. When you place that lyrical narrative next to the severe charges filed by the district attorney, the overlap is impossible to ignore. And the timeline of his album promotion gets even more questionable as the months go on. On September 8th, the exact same day law enforcement officially made the discovery, David went online to announce a brand new deluxe version of the Withered album. Think about how the state will use that specific timeline in a courtroom. The prosecution could attempt to show that while the authorities were making a tragic discovery, he was actively utilizing his dark, heavily scrutinized album for further self-promotion. They could use the lyrics from Afterlife combined with his promotional schedule to paint a picture of someone who was completely callous and romanticizing his own actions in real time. This is exactly why I believe the lyrics on this album are going to be central to the upcoming legal battle. When you release a dark, heavily thematic album just 48 hours after you allegedly committed a capital crime, every single lyric and aesthetic choice becomes a potential piece of evidence for the state. The authorities are going to comb through the entire track list to see if he was projecting his real-life actions into the music. They can easily say the album was a direct reflection of what he just did. In a way, he was possibly putting the truth right out in the open for his fans to consume without them even knowing what they were looking at. This is exactly where the current legal debate over using lyrics in court becomes incredibly important for this trial. Will the judge actually allow the state to play these specific Withered tracks in front of a jury to prove what his mental state was in those 48 hours? If they are allowed to present this music, the Withered album could easily serve as the ultimate proof the prosecution needs to secure a conviction. I believe it is hard for a jury to see all of this and believe it's strictly a coincidence. While some argue against using lyrics as evidence in a case, I believe this is the perfect example of why they should be used. If David actually committed the crime he is being accused of, then I will argue what he did after the fact was just as bad. Using this situation as inspiration for his music or as lore for his persona is just as repulsive as the act itself. Think about it. If he turns out to be guilty, David committed a severe crime and then glamorized it for his fans to consume. That idea is truly disturbing. While you may think using lyrics to convict someone is off limits, what do you say in this situation when the lyrics and all the imagery seem directly connected? All of this could easily change how the jury sees the case. He not only possibly committed the crime, but he used it to benefit his musical career. I am interested to see if all of this will be used to convict him or if the courts will block it. What do you think? Should they use lyrics to paint a clear picture of David? Or should artistic expression never be used in a court of law, no matter how directly connected it seems? I want to know what you guys think. I will be in the comments discussing this with you. If you want to see the second part to this video that drops in the next few days, make sure to join me on Patreon. It is the perfect time as I just released a new video there that you won't want to miss. If you like unfiltered content that the mainstream won't cover, make sure to like this video and subscribe to join the movement. Also, I am now available on Spotify for those who want to listen on the go. I want to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.